Defeat is never final unless you accept it. Life often presents us with moments that feel like endings, opportunities missed, years wasted, relationships broken, dreams shattered. These experiences can feel overwhelming, like irreversible failures. But the truth is, they only become permanent when we agree with them, when we resign ourselves to the belief that this is how our story ends. That belief is the real defeat, not the event itself. Every setback carries within it the possibility for a greater comeback. The years you feel you've lost are not beyond redemption. They may be the very soil in which your future is meant to grow. But you must not allow yourself to internalize defeat. Pain is real, disappointment is real, but defeat is a choice. As long as you're breathing, as long as there's still purpose in your heart, then there's still a way forward. The danger isn't in failing, it's in allowing that failure to redefine who you are. Too many people give up, not because they are truly finished, but because they believe the lie that they are finished. But God doesn't write stories that end in ashes. He rebuilds, He restores, He takes what's broken and makes it whole again. He takes what's lost and returns it with interest. But He can only do that if you refuse to close the book on yourself. There is power in rising again, in standing up one more time after you've fallen. The world may label you a failure. Circumstances may scream that it's over. But none of that has authority over your life, unless you agree with it. The moment you decide not to accept defeat, you open the door to divine restoration. You shift from being a victim of time to a steward of what's to come. Your mindset becomes your greatest weapon in reclaiming what was lost, and in that refusal to give in, you take the first step toward seeing your wasted years restored beyond what you ever imagined. Your thoughts shape your destiny. What you consistently dwell on, whether in hope or in fear, becomes the architecture of your future. The mind is not just a passive observer of life, it is a creator, a sculptor, and a magnet. Every thought you entertain sends a message into the atmosphere, influencing your emotions, decisions, and ultimately your direction. If your thoughts are filled with despair, regret, and defeat, your path will often mirror that internal narrative. But if your thoughts are saturated with faith, vision, and expectancy, you begin to move toward restoration and fulfillment. The battle for your future is first won in the arena of your mind. You cannot expect God to restore your wasted years if you constantly replay the soundtrack of failure, shame, or unworthiness. Restoration begins with the belief that it is possible. This belief must be nurtured daily, because the world around you will offer constant reasons to doubt, to fear, to give up. But when you deliberately choose thoughts that align with God's promises, thoughts of healing, breakthrough, purpose, and renewal, you begin to shift the atmosphere of your life. Your thoughts influence your words, and your words create your world. What you think about repeatedly becomes what you speak, and what you speak begins to shape your reality. If you constantly remind yourself that restoration is on the way, that your best days are still ahead, that your story is not over, you start to move in alignment with that belief. Even in silence, your thoughts are laying down tracks for your future to follow. It is not enough to wish for a better outcome. You must begin to think in alignment with it. Thoughts become actions, actions become habits, habits become destiny. If you want to see your wasted years restored, begin by restoring the thoughts you entertain about yourself and your future. What you meditate on in private will manifest in your life over time. Transformation doesn't begin outside. It starts with a renewed mind that dares to believe restoration is not only possible but promised. There is power in a definite purpose. A person who knows why they are here, what they are meant to do, and where they are headed possesses a strength that no amount of adversity can easily shake. Purpose gives direction. It silences confusion. It fuels perseverance in the face of delay and hardship. Without a clear sense of purpose, the years can slip by, filled with activity but lacking progress. But when you discover your purpose and embraced it with focus, even the time that felt wasted begins to take on new meaning. A definite purpose acts as a compass. It doesn't necessarily make the journey easier, but it makes it clearer. When you are anchored in purpose, you stop drifting. You make decisions based on destiny rather than desperation. You start to recognize which doors to walk through and which ones to close. You become less vulnerable to distractions and detours because you know what you're moving toward. And even when you fall or lose time, your purpose pulls you back onto the path. It becomes the force that restores your momentum. God doesn't restore time so you can wander again. He restores it so you can run with clarity. If you have lost years, don't just hope they'll be returned. Ask yourself, what will I do with them if they are? Purpose answers that question. It transforms restored time into redeemed time. You stop seeing the past as a loss and begin to see it as training for what's to come. The pain, the waiting, the delays, all become part of a preparation that fuels your next season. People who live with a definite purpose do not waste energy on comparison, regret, or doubt. They are too focused on the mission to be slowed down by what didn't work before. Purpose gives you permission to believe again, to dream again, to build again. It reminds you that your life is not random. It was designed with intention. And when you reconnect with that intention, you reclaim power over your path. God restores not just your time, but your sense of calling, so you can move forward with vision, courage, and conviction. Faith is the foundation of all miracles. It is the unseen force that brings the invisible into the visible, the impossible into the possible. Without faith, you cannot even begin to walk toward restoration, because restoration begins in a place you cannot yet see. Faith is not wishful thinking or blind optimism. It is a deep conviction that something greater is coming, even when everything around you looks barren or broken. It is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith reaches into the future and pulls what God has promised into the now. When years have been wasted, when time has slipped through your fingers, and when regret seems louder than hope, it takes faith to believe that God can still turn things around. Faith is what whispers, "It's not too late," even when the calendar says otherwise. Faith is what moves you to prepare for a future you haven't yet experienced. It allows you to act like restoration is already in motion, even when nothing seems to be happening. That kind of faith draws power. It invites heaven to intervene. It creates a space for miracles to unfold. Miracles don't begin in circumstances. They begin in belief. They respond to an atmosphere of expectation. Faith prepares the soil for what God wants to plant. If you want to see your lost years restored, you must first believe that they can be. That belief must become more real to you than the failures of your past. You must see with eyes of faith what natural eyes cannot yet behold. Faith transforms your internal landscape, and in doing so, it begins to change the external as well. Restoration is not just an event, it is a process led by faith. Each step forward, each decision to keep going, each moment of trust in God's timing builds toward the miracle. And when faith is persistent, when it refuses to bow to discouragement or delay, it unlocks the extraordinary. What seemed permanently lost begins to return. What was broken begins to heal. What was forgotten begins to flourish. Faith is the invitation that welcomes divine restoration. And once it takes root, nothing is impossible. Every adversity carries the seed of equal or greater benefit. This is not merely a comforting phrase, it is a spiritual and practical truth. What seems like a detour or destruction is often the very path to something greater. When adversity strikes, it strips away illusions, distractions, and comforts, leaving behind the raw material of transformation. In the moment, it may feel like everything is falling apart, but beneath the surface, something deeper is being constructed. Strength, wisdom, clarity, and endurance. It is in adversity that you are refined. Trials teach what comfort never could. They reveal your resilience, expose your limitations, and stretch your capacity to believe. Adversity is not sent to destroy you, but to awaken what has been dormant within you. It pushes you to rise, to question, to grow, and ultimately to change, and within that process, the seed of benefit begins to take root. Not always immediately, not always visibly, but always inevitably when you refuse to give up. The wasted years you mourn may actually contain the very lessons that prepare you for your restoration. The heartbreak, the delays, the failures, they were not wasted if they matured you. They were not meaningless if they clarified your purpose. What broke you may have also built you. What delayed you may have also protected you. And what you lost may return with greater value because now you're ready to carry it with wisdom and gratitude. God never wastes pain. He uses it. He transforms it. The key is in how you respond. If you fix your eyes on the adversity alone, you'll feel buried by it. But if you search for the seed of benefit within it, you'll begin to rise above it. What felt like an ending becomes a beginning. What looked like rejection becomes redirection. What you thought disqualified you actually qualifies you for greater things ahead. Adversity will visit everyone, but not everyone will unlock the treasure within it. To do so requires faith, patience, and vision. The seed is there, it always is, but it must be nurtured, watered with persistence, and cultivated through hope. Then, over time, the greater benefit emerges, not just in your circumstances, but in who you have become because of the journey. Desire backed by persistence leads to fulfillment. A longing on its own can stir the heart, but without action and perseverance, it remains a distant hope. Desire is the spark. It ignites vision, fuels dreams, and awakens the belief that something more is possible. But it is persistence that keeps the fire burning when everything around you seems cold. Without persistence, even the most powerful desire will fade under the weight of delay, rejection, or disappointment. When you combine the two, deep, heartfelt desire and unshakable persistence, you activate a force that moves mountains and shifts destinies. Galatians, desire gives you a glimpse of what could be. It speaks to the restoration of what's been lost, the fulfillment of purpose, the reclaiming of time that felt wasted. But desire alone is not enough. Fulfillment comes when you refuse to quit, when you press forward through obstacles, when you keep showing up even when nothing appears to be changing. Persistence is what turns prayers into progress and progress into miracles. It's the decision to keep building, keep believing, keep preparing for what you cannot yet see. Every restored life, every redeemed season, every reclaimed year is the result of someone who did not give up. They may have stumbled, they may have wept, they may have faced setbacks that made them question everything, but still they moved forward. Persistence doesn't mean you never feel discouraged. It means you don't let discouragement define your decisions. It means getting back up one more time, knocking on the door again, sowing another seed when the harvest hasn't yet come. God honors the combination of holy desire and relentless action. He breathes on it. He multiplies it. He opens doors that no man can shut when he sees a heart that won't stop knocking. The fulfillment of your restoration is not just in His hands. It also rests in your willingness to endure the process. Time may have been lost, but time is not your master. Your hunger for renewal, backed by daily movement in the direction of that hope, begins to reverse what once felt irreversible. Fulfillment doesn't come in a moment. It builds with every decision to keep going, and when desire fuels you and persistence sustains you, nothing that was lost remains out of reach. Decisions shape destinies. Indecision delays them. At every turning point in life, it is the choices we make that determine the path we walk. Destiny is not something that happens to us by accident. It is crafted by deliberate actions, intentional steps, and the willingness to move, even when the future is uncertain. Every decision is a seed, whether for growth or stagnation. It is the moment you say yes to purpose, no to fear, and commit to moving forward, that your life begins to align with restoration and breakthrough. Indecision, on the other hand, is a silent thief. It steals time, drains energy, and breeds confusion. It often disguises itself as caution or waiting for the perfect moment, but beneath the surface it is fear wearing a mask. It keeps you circling the same place, revisiting the same pain, rehearsing the same regrets. While you hesitate, opportunities pass, doors close, and momentum fades. You don't lose time simply through failure. You lose it through not deciding at all. Restoration requires movement. God can restore what you're willing to walk toward, but He rarely moves in the life of someone who won't move first. Waiting for perfect clarity before taking action can paralyze your progress. Sometimes the clearest direction only comes after the first step. A decision, even a small one, signals your readiness. It says you believe restoration is possible and that you're willing to act on that belief. That single act of courage often opens doors that hesitation never will. You can't reclaim wasted years while standing still. You must decide that your future is worth more than your past. You must decide to let go of what didn't work, to forgive, to try again, to believe again. Those are decisions, not feelings, and they shape the course of your life. Even the decision to believe that God still has more for you is powerful. It shifts your mindset, your posture, and your expectation. Every time you choose faith over fear, action over delay, purpose over comfort, you write a new chapter in your story. Indecision may feel safe in the short term, but it is dangerous in the long run. It keeps you waiting for a future that is waiting for you to act. Your destiny is not a matter of chance, it is a matter of choice. And the sooner you decide to move toward what God has for you, the sooner time begins to work for you, not against you. Success requires a burning obsession and unwavering faith. It begins with a desire so intense that it consumes your thoughts, fuels your actions, and drives you beyond the limitations of your present circumstances. This kind of obsession is not unhealthy fixation. It is focused passion. It is the inner fire that refuses to let your dreams die quietly. Without it, goals remain vague and efforts become inconsistent. But when you are truly obsessed with achieving the restoration of what was lost, you become unstoppable, not because you don't face obstacles, but because you refuse to let them deter you. Obsession gives birth to focus. It sharpens your vision, helping you filter out distractions and trivial pursuits. It keeps your purpose in view when everything else around you seems uncertain. But obsession alone is not enough. It must be partnered with unwavering faith. Faith sustains you when progress is invisible, when prayers feel unanswered, and when people doubt your vision. It is the anchor that holds you steady while the storms rage, and the compass that keeps pointing you toward the future you believe in. There will be times when everything in you is tempted to let go of the dream, to accept that your best years are behind you, that too much time has been lost. But unwavering faith declares that what's ahead is greater than what's gone. It insists that God is still working, even in the silence. Faith is not a feeling, it is a decision to trust in what you cannot see, to keep building when the ground looks barren, to keep sowing when there is no sign of harvest yet. The union of burning obsession and unshakable faith creates a force that cannot be ignored. It drives persistence, commands resilience, and attracts divine favor. It causes you to speak and act as if what you are believing for is already on the way. That kind of posture opens doors, aligns circumstances, and accelerates restoration. People who achieve lasting success and experience divine restoration are not always the most talented or the most fortunate. They are the ones who refused to let the flame of desire die, and who believed beyond reason, beyond time, and beyond doubt. Success, especially the kind that restores what was lost, demands total commitment. Half-hearted hopes produce half-lived lives, but when you carry a burning desire in your heart and a rock-solid belief that it will come to pass, you partner with a power greater than yourself. And with that kind of fire and faith, even the years that seemed wasted can become the foundation for something greater than you ever imagined. Autosuggestion is spiritual alignment in action. It is the process of intentionally directing your thoughts, words, and inner dialogue toward the future you desire, rather than the past you regret. It is more than positive thinking. It is the daily declaration that aligns your spirit with your purpose, your mind with your mission, and your heart with the promises of God. What you repeatedly tell yourself, you begin to believe. What you believe, you begin to expect. And what you expect, you begin to attract and act upon it. When your years have felt wasted and your confidence has been worn down by disappointment, your inner voice often becomes your greatest enemy. You begin to echo lies like, "It's too late. I've missed my chance," or "Nothing will ever change." Autosuggestion breaks that cycle. It is the spiritual discipline of replacing those internal lies with truth. Truth about who you are, what God says about you, and what is still possible. Speaking restoration before you see it is not delusion, it is alignment. It is calling those things that are not as though they were. Your words shape your reality because they shape your mindset, and mindset shapes behavior. When you declare, "God is restoring my time, my past does not define my future," or "I am walking into a season of divine redemption," you begin to move with a sense of expectancy. You notice opportunities you once ignored. You make decisions based on where you're going, not where you've been. The more you affirm what you're believing for, the more your actions begin to reflect that belief. This isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. God responds to faith, and faith is often expressed first through words. Autosuggestion is how you give your faith a voice before the evidence shows up. It builds endurance in your waiting season and focus in your preparation. It guards your mind against fear and discouragement and keeps your spirit connected to the promises spoken over your life. The repetition of faithful words gradually rewires your thinking. You stop identifying with failure and begin to see yourself as someone worthy of restoration. The years you thought were wasted become part of a testimony you are actively shaping with your speech. You speak life where there was once silence. You speak purpose where there was once confusion. And as you do, your inner atmosphere begins to shift. Autosuggestion is not magic, it is partnership. It is you agreeing with God's truth and reinforcing it until your reality begins to mirror your declaration. Victory belongs to those who never quit. It is not reserved for the strongest, the most talented, or the most connected. It is granted to those who endure. The journey to restoration is rarely smooth. It is filled with moments of delay, disappointment, and even despair. But those who keep moving forward despite it all, who refuse to give up no matter how many times they fall, eventually arrive at the place where breakthrough happens. The act of not quitting is itself a statement of faith, a declaration that failure is not final and that lost time is not beyond redemption. Every step taken after a setback is a step toward victory. Every decision to rise again when it would be easier to stay down builds strength. Quitting is easy, anyone can do it. But pressing on when nothing makes sense, when nothing seems to be working, when the evidence around you contradicts the promise you're holding on to, that's what defines those who win. The very act of perseverance becomes proof that the vision matters enough to fight for. It sends a message to every obstacle: you may slow me down, but you will not stop me. The difference between those who see restoration and those who don't is often one thing: persistence. Not perfection, not ease, not shortcuts, but relentless resolve. The kind of resolve that keeps believing when others walk away, the kind of resolve that stays faithful in obscurity, confident that what's ahead is worth every sacrifice. Victory is not a one-time moment. It is the culmination of countless moments when quitting was an option, but perseverance won instead. You cannot reclaim what was lost by sitting in sorrow. You reclaim it by standing up and continuing the journey. Some seasons will feel like survival, others like breakthrough, but all of them count when you choose not to quit. The promise is still alive as long as you are. Restoration is still within reach as long as you keep reaching. And every time you take another step forward, no matter how small, you defy the forces that tried to convince you it was over. Wasted years are not beyond recovery for those who refuse to waste the moment they're in now. The power to overcome, to outlast, to press through is already within you. Victory does not belong to those who never struggle. It belongs to those who never surrender. The reward is for the ones who stay in the fight, who believe restoration is not only possible, but inevitable, if they just don't quit. So let this truth settle deep in your spirit. The years you thought were wasted are not beyond God's reach. He is not bound by time, nor is He limited by your past. What you lost, He can restore. What you broke, He can rebuild. What you missed, He can redeem. But restoration does not come to those who wait passively. It comes to those who rise, decide, believe, and move forward with unshakable faith and relentless purpose. You are not finished, you are not forgotten, and you are not disqualified. The same God who saw you in the valley is the one preparing your table in the presence of every disappointment, every regret, every delay. So speak life, walk with intention, persist through resistance, believe beyond reason, and above all, never quit, because the victory ahead is greater than the pain behind. Be ready. God is restoring your wasted years.